Welcome to the Niftyology podcast, hosted by myself, Chris Nichols. Niftyology is an open source outlet for people to share their successes, mentorships to others, and how they manage to make it to the top. But with every success story, there's a dark story. With this new outlet, the stories shared will help others elevate and overcome their own demons, helping them to unlock their full potential in not only their personal life, but even business. Hey everyone, Happy New Year. On today's episode of Niftyology, we have our first guest, this gentleman that flew in this morning from Mississippi. But before we get into introducing who this gentleman is, I genuinely just want to say thank you for all the love, the support, and the feedback that we've gotten on the Niftyology podcast. So we launched a visual here on YouTube if you're watching it, and we also launched it through several directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and whatnot. And it's received over hundreds of followers on all forms of social media, several hundred views on the visual via YouTube, as well as several downloads on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I genuinely appreciate it. The feedback has been phenomenal. There's two in particular messages that I received from the first episode that I want to share, and one of them is from a gentleman in Arizona, and it's quite heartwarming. It's kind of tear-jerky. So the gentleman that reached out through social media, he messaged us, and he said, "Hey, man, I greatly appreciate the vulnerability and you posting the video on YouTube and in the podcast. It really means a lot to me and whatnot." And, you know, I said some things back, and he said, "Look, man, I'm really looking forward to the great content once again. It's been life-changing listening to your first one. I've actually used it to open up to my wife, which has made her see that I've had a lot in my head, which has made us better so far. We're looking to see a counselor to help mend my personal issues and help us understand my struggles. I really thank you, brother." Like that's awesome. You know?
Chills.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that just goes to show, like, it doesn't matter who you are. If you have a story out there and you just want to share it for your own well-being, or you know, release it for your own well-being, or simply just feel like people can relate to you, that simple message just goes to show, like, hey, this guy lives on the other side of the nation, you know, and he can relate. Like that's awesome. This other one that I received was from a gentleman that's a business owner, and he said that, "Hey, man, I could totally relate to everything that was said. I'd still be at my shop past midnight all by myself while my wife holds down the house with my 1-year-old daughter. All I can do sometimes is watch outside and borderline bawl my eyes out. I take mental health serious. People see the smile, they see the cars, the lifestyle, but people aren't able to see the pain. Love to see your journey. Keep doing great things." Man, when you get messages like that, like, it's tear-jerking. Like you said, you get chills, and it's incredible.
Absolutely.
You know, so with all that being said, this wonderful man beside me is a mentor of mine here in the detailing industry. Again, he has a detail shop in Mississippi, completely just somebody that I genuinely look up to, a father of two, and even though he has a detail shop, he still works full-time in the IT department at a hospital back home. And with further ado, Chris Robinson.
Hey, thanks, man. Look, dude, I'm so happy to be here. Like,
Glad
just
to have you.
yeah, absolutely, man. You know, you say I'm a mentor of yours, but this is an honor for me because, you know, a lot of times even some of the largest guys in the industry, you know, they don't see themselves as mentors, and so you know, that introduction was humbling, but you know, I'm just a normal dude, and so I'm just glad to have your friendship, and you know, we were talking about that earlier today about friendship and what it means, you know, and I guess I touch on how we met, you know, at Shine Showdown with Chase and those guys.
So hang on, what is Shine Showdown?
Okay, so Shine Showdown is it's in Birmingham, Alabama. For those of you that don't know, and Chase Tubbs, I nicknamed him Charles Tubbs, but he gets a kick out of that. But he so anyways, he puts together a car show detail clinic every year for a group of us guys, and so it's a first come first served basis, you know that. So but a lot of people sign up for it. Usually about 65 to 75 people join the class every year. And it's a time for all of us to get together. We go over detailing, we go over entrepreneurship, running a business. How do you navigate running a business and owning a business? Employee woes, that sort of thing. A lot of it is geared towards, though, like a reset every year, and that's what we talked about. This past year it really hit home because a number of people come every year to reset. Yeah, and it gives us an opportunity.
Yeah, no, he does that at a really good time. Basically, like October, November-ish, and if you're in the detailing industry like we are, that's when things start to slow down. A lot of the guys that follow me are a lot of mobile detailers. This guy is an OG in the detailing industry, so he's been around for quite some time. But if you don't have a shop, then once it hits wintertime, like you're almost struggling, so going to this detailing event, it's definitely humbling. You meet a lot of great guys that are involved with Shine Supply, which is one of the companies that we do a lot of business with. And sometimes Jeremy, the owner of Shine Supply, he'll actually fly out, and just being able to connect one-on-one with him with a polisher in his hand and with 60, 70 other guys that have the same mindset as you do around, like it's awesome.
Well, and that's what's so cool about it, because so he'll have different vendors come in, every year. So we've had everybody from Car Pro to Modesta.
We had G-Technic there one year.
G-Technic there was 1 year, and that was fantastic. Mm-hmm. He brings in a large group of people because he attracts those detailers, Yeah. But like you said, Jeremy Stevens shows up and puts polish in his hand. This is a guy who owns a huge ShineSupply.com, a huge business, which a lot of us detailers use, their supplies there. And so it's just it's cool to see somebody who we, I guess, as detailers, kind of put him on a pedestal in terms of, we look up to him because of what he's done through the detailing industry, and like your podcast, mental health, and talking about things that matter. It's cool. It's cool to work kind of elbow to elbow with somebody like that.
Yeah, so, most definitely.
For sure.
So, how was the flight? I mean, you told me that you were going to get in at 8:30 this morning, and it's about a 30-minute drive from where I live to the airport, and I get a text at 7:55. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm about to land," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm still in traffic."
Yeah, so I paid the pilot off to speed it up a little bit.
Okay.
No. So I got up at like 4 this morning, left the house, and got to the airport and got checked in and everything. And they left about 10 minutes early. And I guess we had good tailwind. The landing was a little rough. Well, yeah, we come in sideways. Yeah. So as we're coming in to land, I text my wife and told her, I was like, hey, we're about to touch down, but it's sketchy. And so I've got the text on there. It was hilarious. She's like, oh, be careful. And so, but we made it safe. Fighting the traffic out of the airport was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I come from a little small, 10, 12 terminal airport in Jackson, Mississippi, which is just outside of my hometown, Brandon. Mm-hmm. And coming into Atlanta and actually trying to leave the airport, it's not, a connecting flight. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, Atlanta Airport is one of the busiest airports. I don't think it's the largest, but it's definitely
busy. Yeah,
definitely the bigger side.
For sure.
Side and whatnot. So look, man. So you're in your late 30s. You're 37.
37.
And you still have a full-time job. You're a husband. You have 2 little girls, and you still work a day job in the IT department at the hospital.
I do.
Why is it that you're a business owner, but you still work full-time doing IT in the hospital? Is that something that you genuinely like to do? It's the benefits? Is it combination of all? Like, what's up?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess it's kind of a long story that I would have to start and tell, as we talked about. But in terms of how I started my career with the hospital, went to school at Mississippi State, graduated with an ITS degree. So that's Information Technology Services. And so basically what it is sort of like a business degree, but it integrates a lot of application support or application learning how to use an application by yourself. And so in doing that, I started working at State Hospital, Mississippi State Hospital, which is a mental hospital. Yeah. And they take care of folks who can't take care of themselves pretty much. And so that's why this is important to me, because I come from a background where we're at a mental hospital, Nice. So where they have drug rehabilitation, and then of course they have everything from children to adults and geriatrics and that sort of thing. But I worked in the IT department there, implementing their electronic health record. Mm-hmm. And so that was a process where I learned a lot about billing and that sort of thing with the IT department. And it just bled over into when I moved to UMC, which is where I am now. I've been there.
That's the largest hospital
In the state of Mississippi. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. We've got everything from Grenada, just south of Memphis, down to the coast.
Okay.
So we have satellites that we support all the way from the North Mississippi, east, west, south. So basically my role there, I'm on a team of about 6 different people, and we support every application for the hospital that doesn't deal directly with our electronic health record.
Okay.
So our software, for an example, our feeding software, our software that does all of our bed meals. I oversee that, so making sure that people get fed properly and that those trays are coming through and that sort of thing. It's a number of applications, and I won't go through and bore you with all that. But yeah, I've been there for 9 years. I've got 13 years in with the state of Mississippi.
Okay.
Fantastic retirement, and again, I enjoy it. It's something new every day. We are thankfully through all this COVID mess, getting to work from home. So I'm remotely working from the house. I have to make sure I stay available and I'm there at my PC taking care of any issues that arise. But I work 7 to 3:30, and then when 3:30 rolls around, I've got my clothes on, ready to head down to the shop, which is about a 4-mile drive to my shop there from the house.
Nice.
So,
Now you don't just do detailing at the shop. Like what everything? Like what's
So it started off 18 years in detailing, and I guess I could kind of back up a little bit and tell you the story on that, because you and I had briefly touched on that. But when I was in high school,
So how did you develop a passion for not only detailing but even just all things automotive? Because you have a crazy C10 drive and passion.
Yeah, I love it.
Almost every time I go on Facebook, you either just bought one, polished it up, coated, sold, or you flipped, or what?
Yeah,
So
my wife loves it too. By the way,
so you need to take it back to your childhood. Let's hear it.
So man, when I was young, and I want to say this because I'm dealing with some stuff right now, family wise. But in my childhood, my dad, and I joke saying this, he worked 8 days a week. He was in the car business, and so that's something that I watched growing up. That I won't say he was a workaholic, but I will say that he did everything in his power to make sure that our family was taken care of. And he didn't miss a little league game. He didn't, he was there for everything. And we got to eat dinner with him every night. A lot of people go through this whole process of, well, my dad was never there.
Yeah.
My mom held down the house when she got off work. We got out of school. She's there. She's taking, So my childhood wasn't anything extraordinary or not normal. So, but seeing my dad work so hard to provide for our family, mom included, I have a younger brother, and you can see the difference in the two of us, that my brother is a lot like my mom, in the way he acts and the things that he does. And I am almost a spitting image of my dad. You heard my cousin say that today. When I look at you, I see your dad, So, and it's true. That's the way it is. And I followed along with him, in his work ethic. And I think that's why I am where I am today. Is that I see him doing those things, and I follow that. Everything from a job to trips that we used to take as kids. I mean, we've taken trips, and I'll say that we're fortunate and we're blessed because, man, we've been on trips that most adults would love to go on today, and so, but he always told me one thing, and I wrote it down specifically, but I remember exactly what it is. He told me, always keep your nose clean, and he said, it'll all stay the same. It'll go well. He said, but when you don't, it all goes away. And I have carried that from day one to now. And it doesn't specifically mean don't do drugs or don't do this, don't do that. It means that if you take care of yourself and you do the right things, no matter what the outcome is of the things that you do, it'll all work out.
100%.
Yeah. So, and I totally stand behind that, and I've kind of lived by that rule.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that's kind of like what I said back in episode 1. You're going to have to go through the suck before it gets great, and everything that you're going through in life is a test. It's testing you to be the better man or woman that you're going to be one day.
Exactly.
So if you mess up, that's fine. Just take that L and turn it into a lesson learned and move on.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. So, and following up, kind of in my childhood, that's a lot of the things I remember. When my brother and I were really young, he bought us motorcycles, dirt bikes.
Okay.
And so that was like the first motorized, like, I'm gonna get on this thing, I'm gonna rip, And I won't ever forget, Christmas morning, we get up, they're in the garage, right?
Yeah. How old are you?
And man, I'm probably 6 or 7 at this point.
Okay.
My brother's 5, right?
Okay.
He bought me a PW80.
Okay.
And he bought my brother a PW50, right? So his is a little automatic. Mine had the gears, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I jump on mine. I've ridden bicycles. I'm good, jump on mine, pull it into gear. And here I go across the front yard. And our house kind of is on a corner lot. And so I go around the corner. And when I come back around the corner, my brother is coming across the front yard and smokes the mailbox. I mean, and here's my mom and dad running after him. So later on, and I've got the video, I need to get it off of like a VHS tape, but my mom is holding the camcorder, right? It's one of those that you have on. And so she's like holding it up, and my dad's like, all right, well, this is your gas, and this is and as soon as he says brake, my brother rips it, dude, and he takes out across. So that was the beginning of our automotive career, right? Like that brought us into that. But following that up, we went into high school. We rode four-wheelers and did jet skis and all that stuff as family, you know. We never went and did a lot of that stuff without my parents. And so I guess my dad was like, well, if they got to have one, I got to have, that sort of thing. And I'm playing into that now too. But but so we raced quads in high school. Did that for about six years from middle school to high school. And my senior year of high school, coming into my senior year from that summer, my brother and I both were racing, and we were practicing and that sort of thing. And we had been out to the track, and my brother took a pretty nasty spill. And before I tell you that, my brother and I are best friends. Okay. If you saw one of us, you saw the other one. You know what I mean? We were always together. When he couldn't drive, he rode with me. So everything we did, we were just like that. You know what I mean? And so we were out there, and he was racing and wanted to try my four-wheeler out because he wanted to step up to a bigger bike. And ended up getting tangled up with a guy and took a pretty nasty spill. Tore my bike all to pieces. Oh. And so he limps back. The front wheels were bent, the handlebars bent, the clutch on the handlebar is completely detached. Mm-hmm. He rides the four-wheeler back over to the trailer. So he gets off, and he's like, man, I'm hurting, dude, but, I'm going to be all right. He's like, you want to take my bike, finish out? And I was like, I can't. I'm a big boy. Yeah. And he was on a 300, so I was like, no. I was like, but if you want to, go for it. So he jumps on his bike, and he finishes second place in this little, series or whatever. We had 2 heats and a main. And so we get in the car and head back home, and he's like, man, my arm is hurting. Yeah. We get home, and my mom peels his shirt off to check his shoulder and stuff out. He's broken his collarbone. Oh, wow. Like almost up at his neck. And so they rushed him to the hospital. Bruised liver, broken collarbone, kept him in there for 5 days. Like, it was crazy. So he comes back out. We start school. And the coach for football, which my brother, he's a lot smaller than I am, run a 4-flat 60, he was fast. He was a running back. And the coach told him if he couldn't try out, that he wouldn't play ball. Mm-hmm. And with a broken collarbone, he's in the whole sling or whatever. And so, excuse me. So in all that process, me and a couple of the seniors at the time were like, it's not right. And the coach come to me, and he was like, you got to pick one or the other. You're not going to race four-wheelers and play football. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm not going to wonder if you're going to come back on Monday hurt from Saturday or Sunday. And I came home. I gave it a lot of deliberation because my dad, loved football, and he played football growing up. And so I came home, and I just sat down and I talked to him. I said, Dad, I don't think it's for me, And he understood where I was coming from. And he said, well, son, you got to do what makes you happy in life, what your passion is. And so I chose four-wheeler racing, and we raced for another year or two, and just enjoyed the heck out of it. My parents would go watch us race, and we would go practice on the weekends with friends, and it was just way more fun to me to get off and go to work during the week in the afternoons instead of football, and then go play, go play on the weekends. But yeah, so that kind of brings me up through my high school, and in the summer of my 9th grade year, I actually started Robinson Auto Detail.
Okay.
And that was an idea of my dad's.
Okay.
He said, "Son, you're good at keeping a car clean."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "I've got an idea." And this is back in like 99, 2000-ish. Graduated in 2003. And he put together this trailer for me.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and got a big old water tank from a friend of his who had a tractor that they used to spray, the field and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got this water tank, and he come up with an idea of using a pump off of a motorhome.
Okay.
So when you turn the water on, it's pressurized.
Yeah. That way it's not gravity fed.
Oh yeah. So he wired it all up. We had a pressure washer. We had the vacuum cleaner, the generator, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, all rigged up.
And this is in the late 90s, early 2000s when mobile detailing wasn't a thing.
Uh-huh.
And if it wasn't mainstream. There was no social media. Facebook and MySpace and all those things were really, really small. So it was an opportunity.
So what were you doing? Like going from door to door, like?
Yeah. So initially it started. I had a good list of contacts from where I lived.
Okay.
My dad's in the car business. So initially it's like, hey, you need to call this person, this lady, this man, they may take you on, or let you have some business there at their place. And so it's just rolled into going down to the pharmacy and doing 2 or 3 cars there, and going down to the bank and doing 2 or 3 cars there. And that, obviously word of mouth, it grows exponentially. And so did that through high school, went to Hines, which is a junior college there, for 2 years, continued to do that. And, I worked a little odd end stuff when winter rolled around. I worked at a dealership washing some cars for Fowler Buick there in Brandon. And just kind of odd end stuff when the weather got bad. But in terms of my business, it actually started back in 99. Okay. So printed up a little bit. Like you were talking about with the business cards.
Yeah.
Oh, man, Vista did the
Vista print.
I had a picture of my little truck on there, with my trailer, and was like, yes, Robinson Auto Detail. And it just stuck.
Yeah.
So I went to Mississippi State and took my trailer with me. And I worked as a groundskeeper for the place where I lived, which was Gin Lake. And it just consisted of like mowing people's yards that didn't want to take care of their yard and taking care of, they had horse stables and stuff. So we did that. And I worked at a furniture supply place late in the evenings, putting together furniture that they sold to the campus, for the school. And outside of that, I washed cars. And I guess one of the most memorable moments of my career up at Starkville was my mom and dad had come up for a game. Mm-hmm. And my brother was there. And my dad rode by a bank, and it was a really big bank up there. And he said, "Chris, you need to go in there and talk to the man that runs that place. Mm-hmm. You need to go Monday and sit down and just ask him, ask for his business." And which cold calling was not something that I was used to, I was, hey, I've got a contact, initially. And so I went in the bank, and the lady that was sitting there, the secretary, I said, "Yes, ma'am, can I speak to the CEO or the manager of the bank?" And she said, "What is this in regards to?" And I was like, I wanted to ask him if he's interested in having his cars detailed, or, if I could solicit my business. And she said, "Well, sir, we don't allow outside solicitation." Uh-huh. Okay, cool. So I turned around and left. And I got in the truck, and I called Dad, and I said, "Man, they ain't interested, they don't allow outside solicitation." And he said, "Well, here's what I want you to do, Chris. I want you to go back tomorrow." Yeah. He said, "I want you to go up there and tell that lady, and when she asks you what you need, say, it's about business." Say, "Okay." So I went in and I talked to her, and I guess I led her to believe that I was interested in opening an account with them. Mm-hmm. I didn't say those things. She said, "What does it pertain to?" I said, "Business." And so, sure enough, she said, "He'll see you." And I walked in his office and sat down, and comfortable as you and I are sitting here chatting. Yeah. And I told him what I was up to, what I was doing. And he said, "I tell you what," he said, "my truck's out in the parking lot." He said, "Here's the keys." He said, "Do me a good job and we'll talk." I said, "Absolutely." So I went out to the truck, man. I got all my stuff out, and man, I knocked this thing. Oh, dude, I knocked this thing out of the park.
Was it pretty dirty, pretty clean?
So yeah, so getting to they own a bunch of horses, and they have property. So it was pretty nasty, and he used it, but he drove to work on Monday morning in a filthy vehicle, right? Oh yeah. And so, man, I got it all cleaned up, man. Every panel was wiped, and I, not knowing the things I know now, it was a car washer job. It wasn't a detail job. Yeah. He walked out, looked at the truck, He said, all right, well, it's about 3:30 in the afternoon. He said, can you come back tomorrow? I said, yes, sir. He said, I've got 5 here at the bank that I want to get done. I said, yes, sir, absolutely. So I showed up and I did those 5 at the bank the very next day. And when I finished up, I went inside to collect and take the keys back and, all that stuff. And he said, son, he said, I like what you're doing. Mm-hmm. He said, my wife is the headmaster at a private school here in Starkville.
Oh, wow.
And he said, I feel certain after talking with her that you can go down there and set up for a solid week and never leave. And I was just kind of like blown away that this guy would do that for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know him, So after it was all said and done, I went and took care of the ladies up there at the private school. Turns out this guy has 12 vehicles at his house. And it's nothing like crazy. It was, his daughters, his sons, his wife's, the spare, that sort of thing. Yeah. Got one to pull the trailer for the horses and so on and so forth. So I ended up getting to know this family, right? Yeah. 2 daughters, 1 son. They're fantastic people. Yep. And the amount of support that they showed me was just, beyond belief. And so I worked my way through college and was fortunately able to, with a little help from my parents, graduate with no bills. Mm-hmm. College was paid for. I had a little spending money in my pocket, and moved out on my own. And that kind of leads me into the Me Too portion of this, I guess, where following up with what you were saying in your first podcast and things that really hit home with a lot of these people, and you opening up about some things that you were struggling with. Mm-hmm. My now ex-wife and I had dated since the 9th grade in high school. Mm-hmm. And it was your typical, all the girls are like, oh, I dated this, and it's, and I say that, but it was, we dated in high school. We made it through college, which is almost unheard of. Mm-hmm. And so it's like the checklist of the right things to do. You dated, you got married, and you got a house, and you had a child, and you
were creating that white
picket fence. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. And so in the way I was raised, that's how you do it. Mm-hmm. My family doesn't believe in divorce. They raise you to go to church on Sundays and Wednesday nights, do youth, and these are all things that I grew up doing. Mm-hmm. And we all falter. We're all human. In college, I didn't go to church like I should have. I didn't find a home up there. But that didn't lead me to be a different person. It was just one of those situations where I was making moves for myself, you know what I mean, and having to grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so she and I got married, and were married for about 2 years, I believe, before my first child was born, Paisley.
Okay.
And so I was working at Whitfield, which was the mental hospital. Man, bringing home maybe $29,000 a year. Mm-hmm. We were a dual house income, so my wife was bringing home somewhere around the $23,000 mark. Mm-hmm. We had a spreadsheet for our bills.
Yeah.
So every dollar that came in the house went in the spreadsheet. It got deposited, and we knew where we were.
Yeah.
The beginning of the month, this is how much money we started with. These are the bills that we have. This is what's left over. Mm-hmm. And at this particular time, I'd slowed down. I'd pretty much stopped detailing. Big boy job. It's time to grow up.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people that are detailers are watching this going, well, my parents said the same thing. You need to find a real career.
So even though you kind of had cut off detailing and you had your big boy job and you had a family in a sense, were you kind of sad that you weren't able to do what you were truly passionate
absolutely.
about?
Absolutely.
So how did that affect, I want you to continue on where you left off, but how did that affect you mentally to not be able to do what you truly love to do?
Well, so I'm a car nut,
okay,
from day one.
Yeah.
Anything with, I say that, anything with a motor and wheels, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was always tinkering on my stuff, and it gave me a break, an opportunity to play with my own vehicle and that sort of thing. And I built a really fun little truck, while I was struggling to figure out, making sure that my priorities were in place, where my bills were paid. But when I had a little bit of leftover money, I was like, hey, I'm gonna buy something for my truck, and I did that, and it was fun. That was fun for me, and it made me miss detailing a little less, because I was still doing something. But when it came time to go, okay, what's my next step? What's my next move? Because I like to try to plan. I like to set up for a future.
Yep.
I said, I've received a couple of phone calls from friends, family, whatever. They want their cars cleaned up. Maybe I should start doing that at the house. And I lived in a little small neighborhood. They had a covenants, the whole 9 yards like that. So homeowners association, whatever. And so, excuse me. So that turned into, one of my really good friends called me up, and I'm going to name drop, Scott McNeil.
Okay.
And I will never forget it as long as I live, because I'm actually doing his daughter's car in just a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But he called me up and was like, and you have to know Scott. I'm particular. Scott, I'm here. Scott's here, right? And I will never forget, he had a red Mustang. And it had a Pro Charger on it. We were like, yes, like this is, if I'm going to detail, this is the first one to get back and do, right?
Yep.
And so the first paying customer I ever had in my life was Scott McNeil. And he brought his car over, and I knew, like, right off the bat, I was like, okay, I've got to be super careful. But I'm fixing to polish this car.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, I had the Harbor Freight buffer, like I was ready to go at it, right? And so I did, and it turned out fantastic for what I knew how to do at that particular time. So Scott, if you're watching, thanks. I appreciate the love and support. But it grew from there. So one of my buddies, if you touch Scott's car, you're good enough to get mine. So and it just snowballed, and like faster than I could ever imagine. Like couldn't plan fast enough to get the next one in and that one out. And so I had to speed up my game, and I had to figure out ways not to cut corners, but to improve my quality while keeping the same time standard, And so,
and that's with different products, different tools to
achieve
absolutely.
It. Yeah, absolutely. And the funny part about it is Trucking Magazine had a Truck of the Month, right? And so you get your truck in Truck of the Month. Well, they reached out and wanted to use my truck at that particular time.
Nice.
And so I was proud of that, man. I got a small picture, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't a cover, but we're getting close,
Hey, trucking's huge.
Well, I was thankful.
Okay.
So Truck of the Month, and then out of those people, one of them was picked a winner, and the winning prize was a 5-gallon bucket from Mother's with car wash soap and Mother's ball, power balls, and the metal polish and the Carnauba wax. I mean, like, you got this bucket full of pretty much everything that they offered.
Yeah.
Still have the bucket sitting in my shop, and I use it to store my pressure washer gun and the whole 9 yards. But
nice.
It was awesome because that's what kind of gave me. I didn't have any money, so I wasn't like running out to go buy a bunch of stuff. I used these products that I had to start. And that first car allowed me to go out and get some more products. And then from there, I started trying things, you know what I mean? And we went to McGuire's and then so on and so forth. But, that's where things got interesting for me in terms of my marriage and making some changes financially and for my future. And I was always working. I'd get home from Whitfield, from Mississippi State Hospital, and would go in the garage and work till midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, almost every single night. And this is including weekends. I was doing what my dad was like, son, work ethic, go get it. If you turn it down, you won't get the opportunity.
Correct.
And so I was like, every time somebody called,
you're being a yes man.
Yes, it was. I never turned anything down. You need this, bring it. Yep. If I can do it, I'll take care of it. But that's something I've always kind of held on to, is that if I can't do it, I'm not going to do it at all. But that being said, my wife and I started having some struggles, and in terms of our relationship, and ultimately led to, and I can only speak on my behalf, but ultimately led to both of us making, I guess, not so great decisions in terms of our relationship. And again, I'm responsible for the things that I did, the decisions that I made, and I won't. I would never go back and undo or change any of that, because where it's put me is in a totally different place. But I would say it's unfortunate. My little girl, who was 3 at the time when we went through the whole divorce process, she's 10 now. It was a shocker. And when she and I were going through the divorce, and I moved in with my parents, I can remember leaving the house with my clothes. I got one television. And now keep in mind, like, this is a fully furnished house, a life that we've built.
Yeah.
Like, I had $211 to my name. Like, legitimately $211, a television, and my clothes. All of my detail equipment was still there. All of my boxes, everything that I had to essentially make money, I had to just leave sitting there, and try to figure out what I was going to do next. Through the process of divorce, it's difficult, because while neither one of us were really happy there together, well, we really weren't happy apart either.
Yeah.
And it was always, every time we were on the phone, it was a struggle to communicate, and finally we worked it out where, I could come get some of my stuff, and I took it to my parents' house, and things started to kind of change a little bit in terms of how we were dealing with one another. There was still a lot of frustration on both sides, for good reason. But we worked through the process. And I don't wish that for anybody. We went to counseling. We dealt with a lot of those things, and I've never had mental health issues. And it doesn't typically run in my family. So it's something that nobody could give me any guidance on. Like, what am I feeling? How do I overcome this? What battle am I really fighting?
Yeah.
Am I fighting with my ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife? Am I fighting with myself? My parents did let me stay there, right?
Yeah.
But disown me, right? So I had a key to the front door where I came in, and I went to my bedroom and slept. And then I got it.
Probably like no communication.
No, well, they didn't believe in divorce.
Yeah.
And every right not to believe in divorce.
Because them growing up back in the day,
you just fight it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying physically fight it out. You fight for trying to continue that relationship. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I will use this example. And let me save that example, because what happens next is probably the pivotal moment. And we were talking about that Me Too part, right?
Yeah.
Where Jeremy has been really, really open about the Me Too thing. And a lot of people will say, you say, hey man, I was going through a tough time. I put that gun on my lap, right? Oh man, me too. But there's the empathetic people who want to feel your pain, who think that they can understand where you've come from. And then there's those people who have physically sat there in the same exact spot that you have and go, me too. And one night, I'll never forget it. I came home from work. My parents my parents allowed me to wash some cars at their house. So that I could continue to make a few extra dollars, right? Still working at the same place, in a transition to go to work at UMC, where I would get a substantial raise from where I was. Excuse me. My parents let me wash cars at their house. And one night I came home. I had not washed a car that day. I had been out running around trying to take care of some stuff. And I sat down in the front bedroom where I was staying at my parents' house. And just like throughout the day, there'd been arguments with my ex-wife and just dealing with everything, you know what I mean? And it's just like, it got to a point where it all bottled up.
Yeah.
And I went to the closet where all of my stuff was. And I probably should have stated that when we did get divorced, and worked everything out. I got a shotgun that my dad, had given to me as a child, and then I also had a pistol that I'd purchased. And I sat down in the closet, and I left my phone laying on the bed, and I was like, do I leave a note? Do I send a text message? Do I go wake somebody up? I mean, it's 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And it was a struggle. Like, I didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And I was by myself, and I didn't feel like I had any support. And I same situation, man. I sat down and I took the pistol out. And I literally tasted that steel on my lips. And I was so close at that moment to make a decision that would impact so many people. Not just me.
Yeah.
You leave behind a lot, and it's a path of destruction. My phone vibrated on the nightstand right there, and I heard it. And something said, just go check it, I'm sitting here in this moment, and I got up, and it's unbelievably amazing that my current wife, Claire, had sent me a text message. And she said, I need to see you. And so I got up, and I called her, and told her I'd meet her. And it's 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Mind you, I don't have to answer to anybody. Mm-hmm. And so I left the house, and I went and sat with her, and she was going through some stuff too. She had found out that her husband was cheating on her, and there was a whole bunch of mess. But to say the least, she was going through a similar process at that time. She officially divorced, and I'm officially divorced at this moment. And it was it was a complete eye opener, mm-hmm. To what I was just about to do. That could have, I thought, hey, I'm just going to solve a lot of problems mm-hmm. for myself. But that's not the way I was raised either, And so I went and saw her, and we visited, and I went home with kind of a new sense of purpose. And it wasn't necessarily that we had any kind of conversation. I've never told her this story. She will hear this story.
Oh, wow.
On a podcast, and a lot of other people will too.
Yeah.
There's probably 3 people that know about this story, and so all that being said, she and I sort of started dating at that point, and moving forward. I won't say we made it official, because we didn't even discuss any of that. It was just we wanted to be around somebody.
Yeah.
And but moving forward, we ended up together, and man, I ended up purchasing a house. Mm-hmm. That's the moment in that 6 to 8 months where I made a decision to open a full-time detail business. At home with my parents, detailing out of their garage. They didn't speak to me. I was out there doing my thing, and I was always in the way.
Yeah.
Right? They needed to go somewhere. I'm using their water hose. It was just an inconvenience for everybody. And so I went down to the place, which is now my full-time detail shop, and talked to the gentleman that owned the building, and we worked out a deal, and it was a oil change place attached to. And so I would drive through car wash, and the guy tore everything out. I had it all repainted and freshened it up, and opened on August the 1st of 2019.
Nice.
And had a guy that was working with me down there, which we've talked to business partners, and I'll get into that just a little bit. But had a guy that was working down there with me, and he had a full-time job as well. Mm-hmm. And he quit his full-time job to come on full-time with me at the detail shop. Mind you, I wasn't full-time. I was still at a hospital, right? And by this time, I'd started my new job. And so I was at UMC, and he was basically being the face of my detail business at that point, which we had built a clientele. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a scenario where we had to chase people down. I mean, April 1st, I can count on one hand how many days we didn't have something to do that year in 2019. And it just grew. It grew. We did. I can't even count the cars that we were able to do in 19, and then in 2020, I'm sorry, 2016.
Okay.
Is when I opened my business. 2019 is when we bought the garage. But so in 2016, April of 2016 is when we started the business and worked a couple of years. And so about 2.5 years in, my business partner at that time decided that he wanted to go do something different. We had some disagreements. There were some things, I guess, that we couldn't, get on the ground floor. And so he went on and started his own business. And, I wished him nothing but the best. At the same time, I was frustrated. I was mad because of everything that we had been through and the things that I felt like in my heart that I'd done to try to build a relationship and a friendship and a family with him at the shop. It was, a stab to me. It's tough to deal with. But at the same time, never wish anybody any bad luck, man. I think he's still doing the same old thing, has his own business and is going full force in that. But that leads me up to back doing things by myself. And in 2019, my dad was in the car business still, and he and I had a discussion. There was an oil change business that's attached to my detail shop. And I said, Dad, what are you going to do for retirement? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I'm going to work as long as I can work. And he said, have you ever seen a retired car salesman? And I said, no, I don't guess so. And he said, when you pull up to a red light and the guy's standing there with his hat hanging out asking for change, he said, that's a retired car salesman. I said, oh, okay. He said, so I'm probably going to work till I die, at least till lunch on the day I die, And so he and I in 2019 ended up buying the Speed Lube there, which is now Robinson Auto Garage. Mm-hmm. So I have the detail shop and the Speed Lube with my dad. And man, it's just been awesome to have what I call my best friend. My pops is my best friend, and to work with him. We've had our differences, everybody does in business and family, and that's a hard thing to cope with. But man, it's been phenomenal because I get to spend time with him, outside of just going over to see him at his house. I should say that before I moved out of their house, my parents and I, we mended our relationship. I sat down and just kind of broke it all down for him in terms of where I was, what I was going through, the things that had happened. And it was kind of an eye-opener for everybody at that point. They had been, misunderstanding the situation. So we fixed that, and now he and I have the oil change place. My mom is retired as well, and she's taking care of her mom, who is having some issues, and so she's actually in outpatient or inpatient therapy. She's 90 years old. Wow. Up until about 6 or 8 months ago, she was still driving.
Okay.
She had us come over to her house and put the sliders under the sofa so that she could rearrange her living room by herself. So we've been blessed, to have family that she still gets around. She's still doing good. And then about 5 weeks ago, and this is a current struggle where I don't know what's going to happen, I don't know how we're going to come out of the end of it, but this is another me too.
Yeah.
Your mom had cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
5 weeks ago, my dad got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Dang. And I haven't gotten emotional about it yet because it hasn't hit home.
Yeah.
It's a situation where he's still here, and in front of me, and we're still hanging out, and we're still doing stuff. And
how does he look like physically?
Well, physically, my dad, I won't say he's a health freak because he's definitely not. But as far as physical shape, he's fantastic.
So for me, it didn't start to affect me that my mom had cancer, and I genuinely didn't know how bad it was until I saw that she was basically on bed rest. She started losing a tremendous amount of weight. I saw it in her face and everything. And that really just that hit hard. Because it's
sure,
that's my mom.
Absolutely.
And I'm 17, 18 years old, and it's Mom, you're supposed to be here forever.
Yep.
So Man.
I can't imagine that. You know, after dealing with this with my dad, it's like you have a whole new concept of that, and it's still new. You know, it's a fairly large tumor on his lung, but we've just started treatment, and so it's an open book at this point. You know, but that's something that we're gonna have to navigate.
Yeah.
As business partners, as family, as you know, all of those pieces. So.
Well, I hope everything works out.
Well, I appreciate it.
As far as all the testing goes and whatnot. And, you know, he still has an abundance amount of time left.
Absolutely, we're gonna hope and pray, and that's. I mean, I guess we're kind of getting ready to wrap things up, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah,
and
man.
so I know I've been a little long-winded here, but I did write a couple of things down that I want to touch on to kind of wrap up for everybody that's watching. Because this has to mean something for everybody that's watching, and I want you guys to take something on with you. I'm not going to push anything on anybody, you included. And I asked Chris about this. You know, there's a lot of things in life that are touchy subjects, and I'm a Christian, and I believe in God and faith and that sort of thing, and so I believe that if it's my due diligence when you have a platform to speak on something that means something to you, that you need to put that out there. And so first of all, I want to say, find yourself. Whoever you are, find yourself. Figure out who you are. You have to learn how to say no. A lot of times,
and that's a skill.
It really is, and I have nowhere near mastered that skill.
I'm still getting decent at it.
I've vowed to my wife at the beginning of this past year in 2021 that my business would not run me and my family. I would run my business.
Yep.
And it has totally transformed the way I operate. And it was a total change of pace.
That's an eye-opener. Say it one more time.
So you cannot let your business run you and your family. You have to take control of your business. I made changes to my schedule, my hours of operation, my workload. That was the biggest thing, my workload. Because I always want to help whomever needs my help.
Because from an early age, you were a yes man.
Oh, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
what you said earlier.
Yeah. And you know, not that this is a monetary thing, but it is. We go in business, like you and I talked, for long-term growth and maybe to pass it down to another generation or sell your business eventually or create some type of retirement residual income. Whereas if you're a one-man show, you get put down, you're done.
Yep.
And so I wanted to gear myself up to potentially have my business where I could bring on somebody else and start to do some other things. But as a Christian, like I was saying, you know, seek the Lord in everything you do. Doesn't matter what it is. And if you don't believe in God and that's not what you are about, read the 10 Commandments. You don't necessarily have to believe in God, and I'm not telling you not to believe, because obviously I'm here to tell you. But the 10 Commandments will give you some good guidelines, some rules to live by. And, you know, don't steal, don't hate, don't kill people. You know, just be a good person is generally what that means. And that's really, I mean, that's really what I wanted to throw out there. And I am genuinely humbled and appreciative of the opportunity to be here. And I guess you guys will share my links, social media wise.
No. Tell everyone, you know, where can they find you on Instagram?
Okay, and so I'm on Robinson Auto Detail on Instagram, and then of course on Facebook at Robinson Auto Detail. Again, my name is Chris Robinson, and I have a personal Facebook page as well. The reason I wanted to drop that information is that if any of you guys, girls, friends, aunts, uncles, whatever you are out there to anybody, you know, if you're ever in a situation where you feel like there's nobody to talk to, I'm a non-biased here, you know, and I'm always open, and I'll be completely honest and straightforward with you. Sometimes I'm a little more blunt than I should be, but I would love the opportunity to help somebody if I could. And so this is my way of giving back to what Chris is doing and his team here, to help people. You know, he's seen his struggles. I've had mine. I know there are 100 of you guys that are going to be watching.
Thousands
of you guys that are going to be watching.
One day it's going to be millions.
Here we go.
That's all. You just have to
snowball.
manifest it.
Snowball.
Right?
Talk about it. Yeah.
Exactly.
But somebody else is a me too. And if you're feeling it, and it's something that you're going through, and you don't want to reach out to a professional for help, by all means, I'm not a professional, and neither is he. But we're here. So that's what I want to leave it at, man.
Now we are, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For coming up here, spending your hard-earned money on a plane ticket and a hotel.
Oh, you're not reimbursing?
This is a value exchange.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
But man, no, that's some real stuff. I thought I knew about you, but I didn't really know about you. And a lot of people told me that. Man.
Well, it's like you said, it's an open source platform, man. It gives people an opportunity and something that I would have never done.
Yeah.
I would have never considered putting myself out there like that. But you gave me an opportunity to.
Well, look, man, like the open source platform, it's really just, we're going to come on here, we're going to be open, we're going to be vulnerable, and a lot of people are going to find a lot of respect in it. They're going to respect you and treat you to a higher standard than they ever have before, right? I feel like in today's world, you have to be more vulnerable, more authentic for people to take you serious, right?
Absolutely.
So, man, I greatly appreciate you taking the time, coming up here, sharing your story. Thank God, but thank Claire that you're still here today.
Absolutely,
man.
absolutely.
Like, that's amazing.
Well, I've got a good support system these days.
You do.
So
You do, man.
got 2 beautiful girls and a wife and family. So yeah, it's unbelievable.
Well, good deal, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on to
Niftyology.
Niftyology. And that's a wrap for episode 2. Thank you all for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed it or you found value out of this episode, make sure you give us some feedback. Tell your friends, your family, like, share, and subscribe, because that's how we're going to grow this podcast. Make sure to stay tuned. We have a lot more great guests coming all of 2022.